All right, welcome to the next major thing, and that is bolting those two power conduits in place under the car. Please feed the YouTube algorithm by giving the video a like. If you want to see more like this, click subscribe and ring the bell to be notified of new videos. If you want to chip in on my expenses, I now have Patreon and YouTube memberships. What that means is I get to remove the seats and all the carpet in order to drill and screw in the support brackets. But it's actually a 2-for-1 special, because then I can stamp the VIN in the floorboard right there where the Spanish government requires it. So this is going to be a pain. It's going to take a long time, but it's got to be done. So let's get on it. Well, as usual, I have good news and bad news. The good news is the passenger side carpet just basically rolls up and I have access to stamp the VIN number there, easy peasy. Bad news is I drilled an exploratory tiny hole in the middle of the channel underneath, and that's it right there. So this is the channel that the pipe is going to be laying in underneath, and it goes right along here. Bad news is I can get one side of a U-shaped support. I can get one screw in here, but I can't get it in up here because that's covered. I could get one maybe if I took this shifter plate off and had access to something down inside here, but it looks like I may be going for a single-sided clamp strategy, and I have access. You can see the raised portion here. I can go all the way to here without taking out the seat. I can go put maybe one right up at the front, one in the middle, one here, and then one in the back, and then one here. This is where it takes that hairy jog. That's that right there. So I can do one at the back, one there, and one there. But I'm only getting one side of it. It's going to be impossible to do both sides of a U-shape, so I'm just going to have a J-shaped bracket holding that up. Hopefully the Spaniards don't look at it too closely, because it ain't getting any better. Alright, let's drill some more exploratory holes. I hope you can hear me over the fan, but this is our next step. I have to go from the conduit coming in here and the 2-aught cable coming up here to this gland nut, and these don't work. So I 3D printed an adapter, and this will screw on here, and then the gland nut will screw into here. But I don't have any threads because I'm going to make some threads using the Terminator thermal persuasion. I'll heat up this fitting and then quickly screw this down and then let it sit there. When it cools down and hardens up, it will have threads that'll be perfect. And then I'll do the same with this into the top part. Cross your fingers and see if this little experiment in thermodynamics actually works out. Well, that was interesting. I actually melted it right here. Focus. So this one's going on the scrap heap of disappointment, and I have to get another one and be a little more circumspect in heating it all the way around. Alright, I will give this little project my verdict of I did heat it up without melting it. I screwed this on. It was quite difficult to turn, and the bottom kind of mushroomed out as it was going down. So I quickly got one of my steel hose clamps, clamped it down, tightened it around. Yeah, that's still warm. It doesn't have to be pretty, it just has to work. So the next step is to try to get this part in there. and I designed it so it almost threads its way in. So how hard could it be? As he said for the 27th time in this project. Okay, I heated up the top of the PLA and screwed in the gland nut, and like half a second and the PLA was starting to melt like the Wicked Witch of the West. So I very quickly screwed this in and tightened down the clamp. I think it's the best I can get away with. It'll do. Okay, so I am still of the opinion that this is, it'll do. The heating is critical. Not hot enough, it doesn't melt and screw onto the threads. Too hot and it just turns all blobby. I've got these two will be for the rear, and I've got the two in the front, and we're just gonna move on. Well, here's today's disappointment, and it's a big one. After all of that work on my really sweet adapters, this cable is too stiff to make the 90-degree bend. I even shaved it and polished it inside. I used the lube, and it's just not making that turn. It's big enough this way by far, it's fine, but it won't make the turn. And so this plan is completely shot. I either need to find a 45-degree bend or switch to 1-inch bends and a 3/4 to 1-inch adapter, 3/4 pipe, 3/4 to 1-inch adapter, 1-inch bend, and then some other sort of mating thing to go onto the gland nut. Off we go to Menards. Okay, I'm back from Menards, and I found potentially something that's going to solve my problem. So I decided to move up to 1 inch, so there's plenty of space for the cable to go through. This will go through the bottom pan into the front trunk where the existing hole is. Now it's 3/4. This cable now comes through the 3/4 inch pipe up into the hole, and then this bracket hooks in here and screws down and tightens there. I capture the 3/4 inch pipe here, maybe with a little foam rubber padding, and I don't have to worry about any kind of a bend as I'm physically passing the cable, because the bend happens afterward. Then the gland nut is almost the same diameter as the pipe thread, so I'll make one 3D printed part and not make it so that it has to heat up and expand so much. I'll have it just barely grab on, and then I'll use those hose clamps I had before to tighten them down. And that should give me what I need, with lots of clearance and lots of play, to make the cables fit. This better work. All right, this is the first checkout with the brackets loosely installed to hold up the battery pack conduit from the back to the front. This was a major pain, including trying to get these things to fit here, but it's going to work out as good as it can. All of these are going to get like wrapped in foam or rubber to make a nice snug connection and give it a little bit of shock absorption. And we'll come to the back, and then we get our cables will penetrate up through here into the battery pack from the bottom, because I've got room, lots of room in the bottom here for all the wires and things that need to go in and out, but I have very little access on the side, so this actually is going to work better. So my plan is to put the front battery box in place and then pull a very thin wire and start measuring for orange cable and commit and cut cable. And we'll see how that works out for me. Hopefully it's not 2.3 inches too short. So I have one last piece of the puzzle to get the DC cable up here, out the back of the box and around. I need to seal this and give a good watertight connection. So what I found at Menards was this little adapter that actually screws onto the 1-inch fitting like that. And then I've got to somehow get that connected to this gland nut. Well, that's a loose fit. I could glue it, but then it's too high. So what I did is I cut off the extra part, leaving the threads, and this actually threads itself in quite nicely, like this. I'll put a little bit of sealant in there to tighten it up, and then this goes and screws right on there. Put a little sealant in there, and now I have my waterproof DC connection into the front battery box. That means I can start actually putting it together. Measure 6 times, add 2 feet, and then cut. Okay, we're committed now. I just bought a crap load of expensive 2/0 cable. Well, I never thought I'd see this day. Power cables, battery pack cables. Right now the strategy is to just get the front battery box set up, and then I will do the draw through this conduit to the back, but we need to get everything up here set up first. And the box is in place, and everything is going through the cable clamps up around here. It's all good. 2 complications, as you might expect. One is that the VIN plate that I spent so much time on is fairly obscured, but someone could really get in there and read it. That's not my problem. The other thing is the rods that go to the nuts. This one, you can see it right there, and the other one is right there. Unbelievably perfect location, because I didn't measure it to figure out the right place. I got really lucky. But on this side, I have to figure out how I'm going to get to that nut and put the rod in here, and how I'm going to get the rod down in here. I have 0 extra space there, but we'll figure it out. Worst case, we have 1 cover, 1 rod going across the top. Okay, it's a very special day. It's the day that I'm going to pull these orange cables through these pipes and finalize the 90-degree bracket here, which is going to make my life so much easier, and then tighten up all of these fittings so that the pipe is nice and secure, tighten down all the bolts, and then give it a good cleaning, and then spray it black and make it go away. The challenge is going to be getting this wire through this pipe. It's only a little bit thicker. It's got a healthy bend right here, but I've got a huge bottle of lube, and I'm not afraid to use it. So let's have some fun pulling this cable. Well, with a lot of lube and a little tugging, that actually went really well, right through the pipe. But just a little bit of hesitation at that bend from the crappy bend I made the first time, but the second one is much better. Framing, second one's much better. That'll work well. But I forgot a very important piece, and that is this part that goes on the end of the conduit and protects the end of the pipe from getting scraped up by the wire. And you can see there's a risk of that right here. And I cannot leave that, because that leaves 144 volts grounded to the body of the car, and anything that forms another bridge somewhere will really bad things happen. Things start melting, flames, pestilence, dogs and cats living together. So I got to pull the cable back out, put the protective doohickey back on, and then shove her back in. But I'm happy with the way it worked the first time. It should be good the second time. Okay, first wire is in, protected with the little plastic helper guy. All the way down, bolts are tight. I just have to finish bolting this up because the holes don't line up very well. And this is ready and prepped for the thing that's going on here. So now let's do that one. Second conduit is in place, bolted mostly. I'm going to leave these two ends as they are now until I finalize the rear battery box and figure out the path I want these cables to take. So short of spraying, I'm going to call this done. What a tremendous pain in the ass. If I only knew how hard it was going to be to get the cable from about here to about here, maybe I would have thought of another plan. But I don't know what that plan would have been, because I can't go inside the car. Oh, I'm glad I'm checking these major projects off, because I'm really starting to drag. But I'm getting close.
Just before we wrap up, I want to thank my Patreons, Peter Bouvier and Puppy, for their support. We also just popped over 2,000 subscribers, which is quite a nice milestone for my little channel. All support is greatly appreciated.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if so, please give it a thumbs up. I see that 81% of the viewers aren't subscribed. Please do, as it does help the YouTube algorithm. Take care and see you next time.